thoughts on these trade deficit numbers, and also if you have any thoughts, because I don't know why it would be that our imports would go down, our exports would go up.
Well, we've seen a lot of volatility month to month in the trade numbers, but I think it's more important to look at it on a moving trend. And really what we see is the lingering theme, the fact that the U.S. has a very sizable trade deficit with our key trading partners. And this is something that the Trump administration is continuing to draw attention to. Yes, we have seen a little bit improvement, again, month to month, but overall we're talking about billions of dollars in terms of negative trade relations here.
Mike?
Well, it looks like it's all goods. Services imports actually increased a little bit, but we're talking about a very small amount of money. And as Lindsey says, it's volatile numbers that change from year to year. Because this is not seasonally adjusted numbers. So you really can't make too much out of it. Except
but we're gonna. That's for media.
Well, then
and we have to fill a 10-minute segment.
We'll blame you for not buying Chinese-made dresses or something.
Hey, I was shopping a lot.
Save us.
I think you do make a good point, though. It raises the question of why consumers weren't spending more when we have this tax reform coming down the pipeline. And I think the answer is they were, but earlier in anticipation of tax reform, resulting in a larger increase in their take-home after-tax pay. So in October, November, they were preemptively spending, they were drawing down savings, ramping up credit card debt, and then we turned the page into the new calendar year, and a lot of consumers were very disappointed in what they saw in terms of the change in their take-home pay.
Well, consumers may not be spending, but we know the U.S. government is spending.
Absolutely.
And borrowing more money. I want to put a chart up here because you mentioned the Trump administration has, and President Trump personally has repeatedly focused on the trade deficit. But this chart basically draws a parallel between the trade deficit and the budget deficit. The blue line being the budget deficit and the white line being the trade deficit. And basically what it says is the trade deficit will just follow the budget deficit on a lag of a couple of years. And as a practical matter, can we make any real progress with the trade deficit as long as we're borrowing at the rate we're borrowing, Lindsey?
I think it's going to be very difficult because remember, we need China to buy our dollar assets just as much as China needs us to buy their cheap goods. So it's a very symbiotic relationship, and we really can't address one side of the equation without addressing the other, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple equation. We need other countries to buy our bonds to pay for our deficit. Well, where do they get the dollars to buy our bonds? We pay them for the stuff that they sell us. And this is something the economists predicted when the tax bill passed, that this would happen, that the trade deficit would go up and would have the opposite effect of what Donald Trump was hoping for.
Though exports apparently rose to a record, by the way. Well, just digging into the details as we make a turn to NAFTA here. So the deficit with Mexico did narrow to $6 billion, and the U.S. had a $1.7 billion deficit with Canada. The month before, they actually had a surplus. Mike, you actually spoke to a top aide of Obrador from Mexico, the presidential candidate, yesterday. What was your takeaway on how they're looking at this?
They're looking at the relationship as a very, very important one for the Mexican economy. They need the United States, their biggest trading partner, and they want to work with the president, even though López Obrador has been somewhat anti-American in his rhetoric. He governs practically when he was governor, when he was mayor of Mexico City, and they said that's what he's going to try to do. He doesn't want to withdraw from NAFTA. He doesn't want a bifurcated NAFTA, as Larry Kudlow was talking about yesterday.